Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something that probably crosses a lot of minds, especially lately. How do you handle things when, well, everything goes sideways?
Yeah, when the usual rules don't apply, we're looking at sources covering everything from, say, civil unrest, riots, up to wider disasters.
Right, and specifically how people and, their property, their homes, their businesses navigate that kind of chaos.
Exactly. We've got a real mix today. Some articles on blending and this whole gray man idea, reports on securing buildings during actual events, guides for businesses worried about looting.
And some deeper stuff too, right? Like the psychology behind why riots happen. Plus personal stories, forum discussions on security. It's a lot.
It is. It gives us a pretty wide lens, from the big picture societal stuff down to, very specific tactics for keeping yourself or your place safe.
So our mission really is to sift through all this and pull out the practical insights. What does being prepared actually mean beyond just having, a go bag?
Yeah, what's the strategy for you personally moving around? And for your physical space, your house, your shop, what actually works?
Okay, let's get into it then. And a big concept that kept popping up for personal strategy was this thing called the gray man theory. Sounds intriguing.
It does have that sort of spy novel ring to it, doesn't it? The gray man.
Totally. So what's the core idea there?
Well, at its heart, it's really about anonymity. Making yourself deliberately unremarkable. Blending right into the crowd, doing some kind of emergency or unrest.
So you can move around without being noticed.
That's part of it, yeah. But it's also about hiding your preparedness. You don't look like someone who has supplies or skills that desperate people might want. And the sources stress this isn't like a gender thing. Anyone can apply these ideas.
Just disappear into the background noise.
Pretty much. The goal is to be forgettable. You leave no lasting impression. Ideally, no impression at all. Just another face.
Okay, but why? Wouldn't looking capable, maybe even a bit intimidating, make people leave you alone, like a deterrent?
You think so? Maybe. But the sources argue the opposite is often true, especially when things get really desperate. Blending in has some big advantages.
Such as?
Well, first, movement. If you don't stand out, you can generally move through crowds or tricky areas faster, easier, less hassle, less friction.
Right, you're not drawing attention or questions. Makes sense.
But the really crucial part, avoiding being a target. If order breaks down, someone who looks obviously prepared, tactical gear, big backpack full of supplies, they can look like a walking opportunity for people who are desperate or just predatory.
Ah, so you become a potential resource node.
Exactly. By looking like just another average person caught up in things, you dramatically lower your risk of being targeted for what you might have. You're not advertising.
Protection through concealment. Using the herd to hide, as one source put it.
That's a good way to put it. You become indistinguishable. So the why seems pretty compelling. Move easier, avoid being a target, protect your stuff.
Okay, so how do you do it? How do you become this gray person? Sounds like it takes effort.
Oh, it does. The sources really emphasize that. It's not just throwing on some drab clothes. It takes patience, awareness, constant effort. It's a skill, really. And it's not just your look, it's your actions, your whole demeanor.
Let's break down the appearance part first. What do you absolutely avoid?
Okay, number one, anything that screams tactical or prepared. So military gear, camo patterns, unless maybe you're in a place where that's totally normal, like hunting season out rural, but in a city, big red flag.
Right. Ditch the mully vest and the 5.1 in pants.
Pretty much, yeah. Instead, think subtle, common colors. What do people normally wear where you are? Blues, grays, browns, maybe black. Avoid anything super bright, neon green, safety orange. Those are designed to be seen, right? Easy to track in a crowd.
Like a bright backpack sticking out.
Exactly. Or a jacket with big logos, reflective strips, memorable designs. Anything that makes you easy to describe later, you want none of that. Hide the gear, too.
What do you mean?
Like, don't have knives clipped to your belt. Or a big flashlight hanging off your bag. Anything valuable or useful looking needs to be inside pockets or bags, ideally organized so you can get it quickly without flashing it around.
Less memorable, less visible. Got it. And what about that idea of having something to quickly change your look?
Yeah, that came up a few times. Simple things. A plain baseball cap, sunglasses maybe not at night, that looks weird, or just a basic jacket or hoodie you could put on or take off.
So if you think someone's clocked you.
Right. You duck into a doorway, add or remove a layer, change your silhouette slightly. It might be enough to make someone scanning a crowd lose you. Simple, but could work.
Smart. Okay, beyond the visual.
Yeah.
Scent. Really.
It sounds minor, I know. But scent is a powerful memory trigger, sometimes subconsciously. Strong perfume, cologne, even the smell of, say, specific food you're carrying, or maybe fuel. It can make you noticeable in a way you don't realize. Blending means not leaving a unique sensory trail if you can help it.
Wow. Okay. So how do you carry the essentials, first aid, water, tools, without looking like you're geared up?
The trick is using bags that look totally normal. Everyday bags.
Like a regular backpack.
Yeah, or a messenger bag, a generic tote, even reusable shopping bags depending on the context. Things commuters, students, shoppers carry all the time. They don't attract attention.
So the bag itself needs to be gray, too.
Exactly. And inside, look for bags with decent organization, compartments. So you can grab what you need, bandage, multi-tool, whatever, quickly and discreetly without pulling everything out and showing your hand.
And smaller stuff. Flashlight, maybe.
Integrate it subtly. Small keychain flashlight, multi-tool inside a nondescript pouch in the bag. Maybe a pen that's also, something else. Functionality that's hidden in plain sight.
Okay, appearance, scent, gear concealment. What about how you actually move? Your actions.
This is maybe the hardest part. Requires real discipline. You're blending your behavior too.
Meaning, don't look too alert, too purposeful.
Exactly. If everyone around you is shuffling, looking tired or confused, you shouldn't be striding confidently like you're on a mission. One source mentioned avoiding a gym walk, or that rigid military posture if it stands out.
So you might need to act less capable.
Sometimes, yeah. Match the energy of the crowd, maybe look a bit winded, a bit hesitant, even if inside you're totally focused. It takes concentration to project normalcy while staying aware. It's counterintuitive, acting less capable to be safer.
It really is. Managing perception. What about making noise if you need to get over something or open something?
Good point. The sources suggest using predictable background noise for cover, like wait for a loud truck to pass or a siren, or even just the rumble of a big AC unit. Time your noisy action, climbing, prying, whatever, to coincide with that ambient sound.
Using the environment's sound cloak.
Yeah, synchronizing. Same idea with visual distractions. If something happens over there, use that moment when eyes are averted to make your move. You need to practice observing people constantly, what makes someone stick out. That's your training.
What if you have something that naturally makes you stand out? A beard, maybe, or a limp, or even if you're, say, printing a concealed firearm.
Generally, the advice was, don't try too hard to hide it. If you're really awkward about concealing something obvious, like a physical characteristic or something necessary, like a prosthetic, it can actually draw more attention.
Because you look shifty.
Right. If you have a beard, you have a beard. Trying to hide it under a scarf just looks weird. The goal is to act natural, not like you're actively concealing, even if you are. And learning not to telegraph your intentions with your body language, like how you move before making a turn.
Okay, so gray man is a powerful concept for moving around. But it has limits, right? Not for every single situation.
Yeah, some sources debated that. The argument is that in a total widespread collapse, a true SHTF scenario, maybe the rules change so much that looking conventionally normal actually becomes suspicious.
Because normal behavior isn't happening anymore.
Exactly. If everyone's desperate and acting erratically, the calm, gray person might be the odd one out. However, the more common view seemed to be that gray man is most useful in the lead up to that, or during localized disruptions. A steady progression of events, one source called it.
When there's still some semblance of the old world mixed with the chaos.
Right. In those situations, blending is key. And honestly, even in a full breakdown, the core idea, don't make yourself an obvious target. Don't advertise your resources. That basic principle still holds. You just might need different tactics to achieve it.
So the how might change depending on the severity?
Definitely. And based on where you are, urban versus rural, and what you have to carry, trying to be gray man with a rifle and full body armor, that's a whole different ballgame. Probably not feasible. It's more suited for moving with minimal visible kit.
So it's less about zero gear, more about making whatever you carry look harmless, or at least not valuable.
That's a good summary. Managing perceptions.
Yeah.
And it takes practice. Watching people, thinking ahead. It's an ongoing mental game.
Okay, so that's the individual. Let's pivot to applying that gray idea to your home, the gray house.
Yeah, this was fascinating. Same core principle, different application. The big challenge with home security, especially when things are tense, is that making your house look like Fort Knox can actually backfire.
How so?
Well, think about it. Plywood over windows, heavy bars, obvious cameras everywhere. It practically screams, I have valuable stuff inside worth protecting. It can attract the wrong kind of attention, mark you as a target for looters or robbers.
Instead of deterring, it attracts.
Exactly. So the gray house aims for covert security. You want your house to look totally ordinary, maybe even a bit run down compared to neighbors, while secretly being much, much harder to get into. Hiding your strength in plain sight.
Okay, how do you pull that off? Secure, but not looking secure.
The source from that retired law enforcement guy had some really clever tactics. Windows, for example. Instead of bars or plywood, upgrade to hurricane-certified windows.
Hurricane windows.
Yeah. They look like regular windows, but they're made with laminated glass, strong frames, internal pins. They're incredibly hard to break or pry open. You can even get them tinted for privacy. And if anyone asks, oh, just upgrading for energy efficiency.
Smart. Looks like a normal upgrade.
Totally. Basement windows. Use glass blocks with small vents. Secure but looks normal for a basement. And reflective window film on main floor windows and doors makes it hard to see in, adds privacy, without looking like a bunker.
What about doors? Main entry points.
Again, hurricane-rated exterior doors.
Yeah.
Solid core, ideally no glass near the handle. And for storm doors, skip the heavy wrought iron look. Get a high-security one that looks like a standard all-glass storm door.
But isn't?
Right. They have stuff like keep-safe glass layers, continuous hinges so you can't pry the side easily, multiple deadbolts locking into the frame. The source mentioned one taking baseball bat hits and prying, just cracking. Very tough, but looks normal.
Effective and deceptive. And basic reinforcing too, I assume. Longer screws, better locks.
Oh yeah, that's fundamental. Better strike plates, 3-inch screws going into the wall studs, strong deadbolts. Invisible upgrades that make a huge difference.
What about tech? Cameras? Don't they instantly signal security?
If they're obvious, yes. So the gray house approach is concealment. Hide them. Inside bird feeders, birdhouses, fake rocks, under eaves painted to match. Clever placements.
So they're there but not announcing themselves.
Exactly. And another smart tip. Don't have a dedicated security monitor visible inside. Route the camera feeds to an input on your main TV. If a neighbor pops over, they just see a normal TV, not your command center.
That is subtle. What else on the outside?
Lighting looks normal, but use dusk-to-dawn sensors or timers so lights aren't burning all day. That's a classic nobody's home sign. Mailbox needs to be locked, with a slot big enough so mail doesn't pile up visibly. Another away sign.
Landscaping.
Keep it tidy, normal for the neighborhood. But crucially, trim back bushes or trees right near the house that could give someone cover while they try to break in. And maybe plant some thorny bushes, roses, barberry under windows. Natural deterrent. Doesn't look like a security feature.
Okay, layers of subtle hardening. But what if someone does get inside anyway?
Misdirection. Like the personal gray man stuff. You set a bait, a thieves pack, or a decoy wallet.
Where do you put it?
Somewhere obvious, easy to find quickly after entry. Near the door they likely came through, on a main table, maybe a nightstand. Somewhere a quick smash-and-grab burglar would look first.
And you fill it with junk.
Stuff that looks appealing but isn't valuable to you. An old, non-working phone. A wiped laptop. A wallet with maybe $20 real cash but then expired credit cards, old gift cards. The source even suggested scratching numbers, wearing signatures on old cars to make them look used but useless. Maybe a fake password note.
The idea being they grab that, think they scored, and leave quickly.
Exactly. They get something fast, feel successful, and hopefully leave before tearing the whole house apart looking for your real valuables, which are hidden much better elsewhere. It uses their own psychology against them. And apparently, this works even for regular burglaries, not just SHTF.
That's brilliant, actually, playing on their expectations. And there was one other super simple misdirection tactic, making it look like you were already hit.
Yeah, just scattering some junk, old clothes, papers near the front door, or maybe in the yard. Someone coming along looking for targets might see that and think, someone already looted this place, nothing left, and move on.
Okay, so the gray idea works for people and houses. But when the sources talked about businesses, especially during riots, the security seemed way more obvious. Less gray, more fortress.
That was a really clear contrast, yeah. The source focused on businesses and looting really hammered home how devastating it is. It's not just stolen stuff. It's shattered windows, busted doors, ruined inventory, fire damage. The cost can easily destroy a small business.
And small businesses are usually hit harder, right? Less resources.
Typically, yeah. Big chains often have bigger security budgets, maybe private guards, better insurance.
Yeah.
Small shops operate on tighter margins. Investing in, vault-like doors or 247 guards is often out of reach, which sadly makes them easier targets sometimes.
So given that, what were the main visible security steps recommended for businesses? The non-gray stuff.
Physical barriers were top of the list. Heavy steel gates, Roll down metal shutters over windows and doors. Reinforced doors, maybe steel plating. These are obvious, but they're meant to be. They signal this will be hard work.
A clear deterrent message.
Exactly. Plus, reinforcing the windows and doors themselves. Shatterproof glass if possible, stronger locks, security film on existing glass to make it harder to smash through. Upgraded alarms are crucial too. Motion sensors, glass break detectors, and critically monitored systems.
So someone actually calls the police quickly.
Right. A non-monitored alarm just makes noise.
Yeah.
Monitoring gets a response, theoretically.
Yeah.
Visible surveillance cameras, too, for deterrence and evidence, covering entries, exits, high-value areas. And just general good loss prevention habits help, too.
It sounds like a much more overt, layered approach is needed for businesses.
It does. And getting expert help was recommended, like hiring a security consultant to assess the specific risks for your store, look at local crime, help you build a plan.
What about security guards? Armed guards came up.
That's a big decision. The guide said assess the need based on your location, risk level. If you do hire guards, especially armed, they have to be properly licensed, trained, experienced in handling tense situations, and you need crystal clear rules of engagement focused on safety, avoiding escalation.
Employee safety must be a huge worry during something like that.
Absolutely paramount. Businesses need a written crisis plan for riots looting. Staff need training, emergency procedures, where to shelter safely, evacuation routes, how to call for help, avoiding dangerous spots.
And trying to stop trouble before it starts.
Yeah, proactive steps. Train staff to spot potential casing behavior, people loitering suspiciously, etc. Simple things. Good lighting outside, visible cameras, clear safety signs, maybe just a vigilant staff presence near the entrance. And talking to local police, sharing concerns, asking for advice, requesting patrols if tensions rise.
Our sources, especially those forum comments, got really granular, comparing specific security methods, too. Plywood versus bars versus shutters.
Yeah, that was useful real-world perspective. Plywood? Yeah. Cheap, fast, temporary, but not super strong. Bars gates? Strong deterrent, permanent but expensive, can hinder escape, look intimidating. Roll-down shutters. Best protection, fast operation, but very pricey. Need installation. Security film helps hold glass, adds privacy, but not foolproof. Needs pro install. Lots of trade-offs.
And the tech discussion was huge. Alarms, cameras, DIY versus pro.
Oh, yeah. Everything from simple alarms to complex smart home integrations. Cameras, sensors, smart locks. They offer deterrence, monitoring, evidence. But costs add up equipment, monthly fees. Reliability is key, too. Power outages, internet going down, battery life. Wired systems like PoE cameras tend to be more robust against jamming or simple failures than wireless.
And that whole DIY versus pro debate.
Right. Systems like SimpleSafe, Ring, UFI are way cheaper upfront. You can often install them yourself. But maybe fewer features, maybe reliant on cloud storage, which has privacy implications and fees. ProSystems Control 4, DSC, Vivint can be super expensive, often lock you into contracts, but might offer better hardware, more integration, maybe local storage options like an NVR.
Which avoids the cloud.
Exactly. Stores footage locally. User experiences were all over the map, though. People liked good AI detection, local storage, hated high costs, pushy sales, bad installs from some pro companies. Some preferred PoE cameras and their own NVR for control, despite the upfront hassle.
So clearly no single best answer for tech. Depends on your budget, your tech comfort, your specific risks.
Totally. It's a complex market. And navigating all those options, especially when the stakes are high for your home or business, well, getting good information is key. That's where having resources that focus specifically on these things can help, like looking at guides focused on home security tech, maybe something like Secure IoT House, or for business needs, secureiot.office.world. They can help you sort through the different systems and figure out what layers make sense for you.
That's a really good point. Making informed choices is critical when you're talking about security.
Absolutely. And, as much as we've talked about the physical stuff, blending in, hardening buildings, the sources also brought us back to the human side, the why, the psychology behind this chaos.
Right. Shifting from tactics to the bigger picture, one source used that powerful phrase from Martin Luther King Jr. calling riots the language of the unheard.
Yeah. That article presented a really challenging perspective, arguing that riots aren't always just random mayhem, but can be symptoms of much deeper societal problems. Things like systemic inequality, racial injustice, broken promises.
The idea being that if people feel unheard and unseen by the system for long enough, then destructive outbursts can happen. The source argued, referencing MLK, that just condemning the riot without addressing the underlying conditions that breed that despair is like treating a fever without looking for the infection. It called it bad medicine.
So the chaos stems from unresolved societal pain, in that view.
Yes. And it stressed distinguishing peaceful protesters exercising a fundamental right from those engaging in looting or violence, who might have totally different motives. But the article suggested the environment allowing widespread unrest often glows from that same systemic disease. It even brought up Ta-Nehisi Coates' point about the state demanding nonviolence while sometimes perpetrating violence itself, making it feel like a con.
That really forces you to look beyond the immediate damage and ask why.
It does. And the implication is that real, lasting solutions require organizing that anger into focused action for change, not just letting it explode destructively. And to see how this plays out in reality, we looked at that report on the Minnesota riots in 2020. That was sobering, a real case study in system failure.
Stark is the word. The report laid out major failures in the official response, leading to really tragic outcomes. Deaths, injuries, businesses destroyed, especially minority-owned ones, which are often community cornerstones, and crime rates spiking long after.
The impact on law enforcement itself was brutal, too, according to the report.
Absolutely. It described police feeling overwhelmed, even abandoned. The fall of the 3rd Precinct was just incredible. Officers fearing for their lives inside, reportedly saving bullets for themselves if overrun, seeing their precinct burn down. The report noted it was supposedly the first time a U.S. police precinct had been lost since the Civil War era.
And citizens felt abandoned, too, those 911 calls.
Heartbreaking stories. Calling because rioters were trying to firebomb the building next door with your disabled wife inside and getting a busy signal. That's a fundamental breakdown of the government's basic job protection.
What did the report blame for these failures?
It was very critical of political leadership, the governor, the mayor, suggesting that hesitation, maybe driven by political concerns about appearing heavy-handed, led to critical delays in deploying enough resources like the National Guard. There was this debate about whether force would escalate things, which the report argues paralyzed decision-making while the city burned.
So the argument was that political indecision directly contributed to the chaos on the ground.
That was the report's strong assertion, that experienced police and guard knew what to do, but leadership got in their way, costing lives and property. It also pointed out inconsistencies, like initial claims about outside agitators being contradicted later by arrest data showing mostly locals were involved.
And the lack of follow-through in the justice system afterward.
Yeah, the report argued that failure to arrest and prosecute many offenders created that sense of impunity we talked about earlier. It emboldened criminals, leading to that sustained spike in murders, carjackings, other crimes, long after the riots stopped.
The report also connected it to longer-term issues, like police funding debates.
Correct. It argued that past moves to cut funding or even eliminate the Minneapolis PD left the force undermanned and unable to respond effectively to large-scale disorder. It also mentioned a specific city rule that actually banned businesses from using external security shutters, limiting their protection options right when they needed them most.
Wow. That report really underscores how much individual preparedness depends on a functioning society around it.
It really does. When the larger systems fail, the burden on individuals and businesses becomes immense, maybe even impossible.
So pulling back from the physical and the societal failures, the sources, especially those comments, also touched on other vital elements.
The less tangible stuff.
Right. Beyond gear, beyond walls. Skills, knowledge, practice. That came up again and again. Street smarts, first aid, maybe wilderness survival, depending on your context. Skills go with you anywhere. Portable preparedness.
Skills over stuff. In many ways, yeah. And basic health, often overlooked. Eating well, managing stress, keeping your mind sharp. These aren't luxuries. They're fundamental to your ability to cope physically and mentally when things get tough.
Community, too. Connection.
Huge. Several comments stressed reaching out to neighbors, relatives before a crisis, building those relationships, communication lines, looking out for each other. A connected neighborhood has a kind of collective security that one person alone can't match.
And for some people, faith played a big role.
Yes, that was mentioned too, as a source of psychological strength, hope, resilience, a framework for coping with trauma and adversity that some found essential.
Okay, so let's try to wrap our heads around all this. Gray man blending, gray house subtlety, overt business security, the psychology of riots, system failures, skills, community. What's the big takeaway?
It really points to needing a layered, flexible approach, doesn't it? Knowing when to be invisible versus when to show strength. securing your space intelligently, whether subtly or overtly.
And recognizing it's not just physical, it's mental, strategic, even relational.
Absolutely. Understanding the why, the societal context, the potential for system failure, helps you prepare better for the what. It informs your strategy.
And that tension really came through, didn't it, between self-reliance, individual preparedness, and the absolute need for functioning societal systems and community support. You need both.
It's a complex dance. And knowing the tools available, like the security tech we discussed, whether it's simple locks or advanced systems, is part of that preparedness equation. Again, for folks trying to make sense of those specific choices for their home or office, resources like secureit.house or secureit.office world can offer that focused guidance.
It's definitely a lot to think about. You have the image of the gray man slipping through chaos and the business owner forced to put up steel shutters. The cleverness of a decoy wallet versus the stark reality of unanswered 911 calls. The quiet strength of neighbors checking on each other.
It's a whole spectrum of human response and societal fragility.
Wow, yeah, that was quite the deep dive. We went from becoming personally invisible to making our homes secretly strong, then looked at how businesses have to be visibly fortified. We explored the deep roots of unrest, saw what happens when systems collapse, and came back to core human needs like skills, connection, and mindset.
It really showed that preparedness isn't just one thing. It's this mix of physical stuff, smart thinking, mental toughness, and understanding the world around you.
The sources gave us everything from super practical tips, hide your good stuff, use hurricane windows, right up to these huge questions about societal breakdown and justice.
Though pulling it all together, maybe navigating turbulent times means having that personal strategy, that secure space, but also recognizing you're part of a bigger picture, one that can be fragile.
Okay, here's something to really chew on then. We talked about the practicalities, gray man, gray house, shutters. But we also talked about riots as the language of the unheard, symptoms of deeper issues. Considering the devastation when society fails, like in Minnesota, does focusing on fixing those root causes, the disease itself, become the most fundamental form of preparedness? Reducing the chance you'd ever need the gray man tactics because the underlying pressures are lessened. That feels like something worth mulling over long after this conversation ends.